Our pleasure to bring in the Secretary of Treasury, Steven Mnuchin. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for coming back to CNBC.
Jim, it's great to be with you as usual.
All right. So I was thrilled last night. I got my U.S. Department of Treasury Assistance for Small Business. The Paycheck Protection Program, $349 billion. We got to get everybody who has small businesses to look at that immediately. How do we do that?
Jim, as I said, this program is going to be up and running tomorrow. I'm pleased that working with the SBA, we're going to be able to deliver it. As you said, the Paycheck Protection Program, you can take out a loan for up to 8 weeks of payroll as well as overhead. You hire the people back. As long as you hire the people back, the loan is forgiven. I'd encourage every small business, go to treasury.gov. There's a red banner on the top. Click on it, and you will get the information. And you can go to any SBA lender. You can go to any FDIC-insured bank and any credit union. Call your lender, see if they participate. I very much want people to sign up for this. It's a great way to hire people back or make sure you're getting paid if you have people at work. And this will cover about 50% of the payroll of the private enterprises.
Yep. I thought that this was the single most important thing that's happened so far, including the overhead, which I thought was fantastic. Let's talk about the next program. We started hearing, bubbling up, the notion that both parties would like to see a bond, perhaps some sort of infrastructure or anti-COVID bond. Now, Mr. Secretary, you know the credit markets better than any Treasury Secretary that we've ever had, maybe Secretary Rubin. But you know that 30-year is basically a giveaway, 1.2%. Can we buy that? We want to buy COVID war bonds. Will you give us that opportunity?
Jim, you can buy as many 30 years as you want. That's no problem. We'll also be selling 20 years as well. And let me just say the borrowing on the short end of the curve is extremely attractive for us as well. So we're very focused on executing the existing plans and doing the government financing, which is being very well received.
Can you give us a sense of the country is about to pay rent? We have the CEO of Citi later on, Michael Corbat. I'm concerned that people will say, you know what, I don't have to pay my mortgage. And the ripple effect here, particularly at the corporate level, could be as bad, some people think, as what happened during the Great Recession. Can you give us your sense of how tough it could be for in the mortgage market?
Well, Jim, let me just say before I get to the mortgage market, and let me just say, we are executing on these plans. We have the SBA plan. As I've said, we have the plan of direct deposit, which is going to be up and running in another few weeks. That's going to get money into people's accounts. And we also have the enhanced unemployment insurance. So hopefully workers, no fault of their own, who aren't working because of this, they're going to get money in their pockets. And to the extent that they have problems with mortgages, the FHFA has already come out and said that they will forbear. So what that means is if people don't have jobs and people have hardship, they can forbear. If people do have jobs, we expect those people to continue to pay their mortgages. But that will be dealt with on a bank-by-bank basis. And the most important thing is that FHA loans, GSE loans, Fannie and Freddie, which is the majority of the market, the government will be giving people time to pay those loans.
Mr. Secretary, it's David Faber. Jim referenced this, I think, in part in his question, but I'd love to follow up. The president recently tweeting about a big infrastructure effort, perhaps as much as another $2 trillion. Is that a real effort? Are you in negotiations at all with within the House and the Senate in terms of trying to get something, as this is called, a phase 4 sort of plan?
Well, as you know, the president's been very interested in infrastructure. This goes back to the campaign. The president very much wants to rebuild the country, and with interest rates low, that's something that's very important to him. We've been discussing this for the last year with the Democrats and the Republicans. I've had ongoing conversations with Richie Neal on this, and we'll continue to have those conversations. So we expect there will be more bills. And we think it is a great time now to invest in infrastructure.
Mr. Secretary, it's Carl Quintanilla. Our Ayman Jaffer is reporting on how quickly plans are being made for a phase 4 stimulus package. His reporting suggests that right now the emphasis of the White House is on executing phase 3. Can you talk about that?
Well, again, let me just say, the most important issue is execution on what we have. We have a lot of money. We need to get that into hardworking Americans' hands. We also have facilities that we're working very closely with the Fed that will inject a lot of money into this economy quickly. As I've said, we need to get these things going in the next few weeks. Having money that's sitting around and distributing in 4 months does no good to hardworking Americans. One of the things I've heard is, this small business program is going to be so popular that we're going to run out of our $350 billion. If that's the case, I can assure you that will be the top of the list for me to go back to Congress on. It has huge bipartisan support, and we want to protect small business. But we're also coming out with a Main Street lending program with the Fed that will help mid-sized businesses. We'll be looking at programs for state and local governments. We've already had programs for large companies, for money markets, to support money markets. So I can assure you, Jay Powell and I are working round the clock at providing liquidity into this economy.
Secretary Mnuchin, thank you again for this. I think people don't understand the contrast between 2007, 2009. Big banks get bailed out. You're actually helping the base of the country. 85% of the workers can be covered ultimately by what you're doing. And as someone who's already filled this out, I think people have to fill it out. It's vital. There should be no excuses for small business because you're making the money available. Now, how about these big banks? Yesterday, the Bank of England said, you know what? The banks over there, they should halt paying their dividends. Now, I understand we stopped the buybacks. Do we need to stop paying dividends at our banks?
Jim, I'm going to leave that to the banks. We want to make sure that they have plenty of capital to grow their business. I assume that's their number one issue. They want to make loans to help American business. That's their priority, and I'm sure that's where they're going to be focused on putting their capital. As I've spoken to every single one of these bankers, good news is our banks are in good shape. They're out there lending. They want to support the markets. They want to support small business, and that's their focus.
Now, I know you can't reveal who is a necessary entity versus who isn't, but we do have two different travel entities that are out there. We have the cruise ships, by the way, that don't pay U.S. taxes, and I think that probably is of interest to you, and we have the airlines that do. Are you ready to take stakes in the airlines, which will keep them alive? Because when this is over, we need strong airlines. But do we need strong cruise ships?
Well, Jim, let me just say that the way the program works with Congress is it's very specific. There are limited industries that I can deal with direct. The airlines, the passenger airlines, the cargo airlines, and national security companies are the only areas and their contractors that we can deal with direct. And we've already begun to have those discussions. We've posted applications for the airlines. We'll be sitting down with them. Again, it's very critical. Anything they take, they will have to maintain all of their employees. So we're working on that quickly. We do not have the ability under the congressional programs to do anything with cruise ships direct. We do have the ability to do broad-based programs with the Fed where everybody is treated equally.
Mr. Secretary, I guess it's David Faber again. On the airlines, what are your expectations there in terms of their willingness to potentially take or allow the government to take equity stakes? I think there's some concern amongst employees they won't do that and jobs will be lost. And time is obviously of the essence, given those incredible numbers being so low in terms of passengers on the airlines right now. So
time is definitely of the essence. And let me comment, you look very comfortable in your home there. I don't want you guys to get too used to this. I want to see you guys back in the studio. But let me say, time is of the essence. We will be doing this very quickly. These are going to be optional programs. We're not forcing airlines to do these deals. We'll make these available to the airlines. If they want to take them, they'll take them. I think, as you know, different airlines are different credits. We've been very clear that taxpayers will be compensated for anything we do.
I wanted to follow up as well on my previous question that you answered about potential infrastructure bills. Mr. Secretary, you said at the very end of your comment there will be more bills. Were you referring to more infrastructure bills, or were you referring to, in general, more bills dealing with the relief that this economy needs?
The president has been very clear. He is prepared to do whatever we need to do to make sure that American workers and American business are protected. This is a unique situation. This is a situation where, because of a medical issue, which we're fighting a war on this virus, which we will win. We have shut down parts of the economy, and the president is determined that we will protect American workers, American business. We now have a lot of money to do that. If we need more programs or more money, we will be going back to Congress and asking for that.
Mr. Secretary, I think that it's very explicit how you do the loan. I thank you for making it so that you really just can read it and click and get it. But what I want to know is, how do we get the word out to people who have 1 and 2 people at their company? This is what I know you're really focused on. I know you're focused on the business that's 10 people. I know you're focused on the business that's 3 people. When I read this, I was shocked at how that you give us even some overhead protection. How do we in the media get the word out? Because there's tremendous amount of negativity about what's going on in the actual, of course, COVID world. But this is something I've never seen before. I think it's just something that a lot of people may not even know they can apply to. What do we do to let people know that this is a way to keep your job during this period?
Jim, you got to keep talking about it and get everybody to sign up. So, I want to thank all the people at the SBA and the Treasury who have been literally working 24 hours. The fact that we've been able to get up a new program in less than a week is just extraordinary. As you said, this not only covers small businesses, it will cover independent contractors as well as self-employed and sole proprietors. It will take an extra week for us to get that up and running. So that will be up and running next Friday. And I just want to thank everyone in the government who delivered on our commitment to get this up and running tomorrow.
Mr. Secretary, I'm really concerned about the job creation. It was the Permian. The job creation, it was the, I'd say, let's just call it something that I know the president cares tremendously about, our energy independence. Can we really let this happen? Can we really let oil go to $10 and wipe out our own independence and wipe out an industry that I know you think is very important for job creation? Can we just stand by and let that happen?
Well, Jim, we talked about getting approval from Congress of buying oil at these prices and filling up our strategic reserves. We'll continue to ask Congress for that approval. And I know the president has had calls with both Saudi Arabia and Russia to talk about this. The president is absolutely determined to protect our energy independence and our ability to continue in this industry, which is a very important industry for our workers.
Mr. Secretary, you mentioned to Jim the Fed's Main Street lending program. Can you give us a little more sense as to when it's going to be fully implemented, what your conversations with Chairman Powell focus on, just a bit more there in terms of allowing us to understand what could be an enormous impact, obviously, from that program?
Well, both the Fed and Treasury has a team of people. We're meeting on this every day. It's a very big priority. It's something we're focused on the design, but we want to make sure that mid-market companies have access to liquidity. And again, I can't comment on the exact timing, but let me just say it will hopefully be soon because, again, all these programs we want to get up and running so that they're available to American business and American workers quickly. That's our objective, and we'll be delivering on that shortly.
Secretary, just one last one. I know that the Treasury seems to be a little bit averse, as was when I used to ask Secretary Geithner about it, to giving us a chance, Americans, to be able to buy a specifically labeled bond that would help small business. Why not have a Mnuchin bond, a President Trump, I don't really care, a crushed COVID bond, but why not give us something that is like the war? Because Americans want to contribute. And if you had a small business bond that would allow it so even businesses could begin when this is over, make new businesses, give them loans, I think it would be embraced by both Democrats and Republicans, provided it has infrastructure in it. And I know that if you got behind it, sir, it would happen.
Well, Jim, we'll continue to work with you on that. As I said, our focus is making sure these programs get up and running. We got $6 trillion to put into the economy. That should create a lot of liquidity and a lot of help for small businesses and American workers. And as we deliver on that liquidity, it's going to create a lot of help. So that's really our focus. And as I said, we'll be working with the president on infrastructure and other areas to continue to work with Congress on.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for calling in. Thank you so much for doing exactly what you said you'd do and more for small business, because that's 85% of our country. Always great to talk to you.
Good. And, Jim, I'd only hope that you guys keep on talking about these small business loans all day. Go to treasury.gov, get the information, call your lenders, sign up.
You sure will, because that is the backbone of our country.